Hey everyone, and welcome to the channel. Have you ever felt like the deck was stacked against you from the moment you were born? Like you were handed a script for your life that seemed almost impossible to rewrite? What if I told you about someone who didn't just tear up that script, but wrote an entirely new one, a masterpiece of resilience and transformation, using the most powerful tool imaginable, education? Today, we're diving deep into a story that's not just inspiring, it's a testament to the unyielding power of the human spirit. We're talking about Educated, the phenomenal memoir by Tara Westover. This isn't just a book review, it's an exploration of how a fiercely strong inner self can be the ultimate remedy for life's deepest wounds. Tara's journey from a remote mountain in Idaho, cut off from mainstream society, to the hallowed halls of Cambridge University is nothing short of breathtaking. It's a story that forces us to ask, what are we truly capable of when we decide to learn, to grow, and to heal? Tara Westover's story, as chronicled in her unforgettable memoir, Educated, begins in a place that feels almost mythical in its isolation, Bucks Peak, Idaho. Her father, a man I can only describe as a charismatic but deeply troubled patriarch, ruled his family with an iron fist, fueled by extreme Mormon fundamentalist beliefs and a profound distrust of anything governmental or mainstream. This meant no public schools, no doctors, no birth certificates, essentially no official existence. Her mother, initially a woman with her own independent thoughts, gradually became an echo of her husband's increasingly erratic worldview, a skilled herbalist who nonetheless deferred to his pronouncements even when they defied common sense and safety. Imagine growing up where the concept of formal education is not just dismissed but actively demonized. Tara and her siblings were homeschooled, but this was a far cry from any structured curriculum. Their lessons were more about the coming apocalypse, the evils of the socialist government, and the righteousness of their isolated way of life. From the tender age of 7, Tara was thrust into the perilous world of her father's junkyard, a chaotic landscape of twisted metal and dangerous machinery. This wasn't a playground, it was a daily dance with danger. She recounts with chilling clarity near-fatal accidents, being thrown from a pile of scrap, narrowly escaping being crushed under a vehicle. This environment wasn't just physically threatening, it was a crucible of fear. Her brothers suffered horrific injuries, burns, gashes, even severed fingers, all treated with herbal remedies and prayer because hospitals were considered tools of a corrupt system. Tara herself once imagined this junkyard as a magical battleground of good versus evil, but as she grew, the illusion shattered, revealing it as a terrifying, infernal training ground where fear was a constant, unwelcome companion. But the dangers of the junkyard were, in some ways, less insidious than the emotional and psychological turmoil brewing within her own home. Beyond the physical hazards, Tara's life was permeated by an undercurrent of violence and oppressive misogyny, primarily embodied by one of her older brothers, Shawn. Shawn was a volatile presence, his moods swinging wildly, his behavior often escalating into terrifying physical and emotional abuse. He would deride Tara with vulgar names, demean her intelligence, and inflict physical pain. Famously, at one point, twisting her wrist until she heard a pop, and another time dragging her by the hair and forcing her head into a toilet. Even after she managed to escape to college, Shawn's shadow loomed large, his threats and abusive tendencies following her, seeping into her nightmares, making her fear for her very life. These experiences, the constant fear, the physical pain, the emotional degradation, carved deep scars into Tara's young psyche. They cultivated a profound sense of inferiority, a hypersensitivity to her surroundings, and a pervasive anxiety. There's a powerful saying that when you are afraid, every door seems closed to you. And it's often not the external circumstances that break a person, but the internal landscape of fear, despair, and a shattered sense of self-worth. This negative energy, when suppressed and unaddressed, can warp one's perception of the world, creating a prison of one's own making. Yet, and this is where Tara's story begins its extraordinary ascent, she possessed an awareness, a flicker of something more. Despite the crushing weight of her reality, she didn't entirely succumb. There was a resilience, a stubborn spark of defiance that refused to be extinguished. Even as fear clung to her, she made the audacious decision to seek something different. It's like she was locked in a cage, but still found a way to dance, however tentatively. She began, inch by painful inch, to allow her stifled potential to unfurl, to nurture a fragile hope in the suffocating darkness of her upbringing. The cacophony of the junkyard, the oppressive atmosphere of her family, the brutality of Shawn, and the unyielding dogma of her father, all these created a desperate, almost primal urge in Tara to escape. Then, a sliver of light pierced through the gloom. Her older brother, Tyler, the one who had always seemed a bit different, a bit more intellectually curious, managed to defy their father's expectations and get into college. This act, seemingly small from an outsider's perspective, was a monumental event for Tara. It was a beacon, a proof of concept that another world, another way of being might just be possible. Inspired by Tyler's courage, Tara made a secret, world-altering decision. She too would try to get into college. This was an act of quiet rebellion, a monumental undertaking for someone with virtually no formal education. She had to teach herself everything. She procured textbooks, devouring them in stolen moments, hiding her intellectual hunger from her family. She wrestled with algebra, trigonometry, physics, concepts entirely alien to her previous existence. All the while, she clung to a nascent belief that beyond the confines of Buck's Peak, there existed a world governed by reason, logic, and order. Her first attempt to pass the ACT, the standardized test required for college admission, was a failure. But Tara, already seasoned by a lifetime of hardship, was not easily deterred. She redoubled her efforts, fueled by a desperate hope. And then, after another grueling period of self-study, the impossible happened, an acceptance letter from Brigham Young University. Getting into college, however, was not the triumphant end of her struggles. It was, in many ways, the beginning of a new, bewildering set of challenges. Imagine stepping into a university lecture hall, having never sat in a classroom, never written an academic essay, never even heard of basic historical events that were common knowledge to her peers. Her vocabulary was limited. Basic assignments felt like scaling mountains. She was so unfamiliar with the norms of academic discourse that her innocent questions were sometimes misinterpreted by professors as deliberate disruption or disrespect. She felt like an alien, profoundly out of place. Teachers and classmates often treated her with disdain or confusion, making her an outcast. The isolation was profound. There were countless moments when she questioned her decision, when the thought of returning to the painful familiarity of home seemed almost comforting. The university, she thought, might have been a terrible mistake. But even as her heart wavered, that core of resilience, that quiet determination, never completely broke. To pay her rent, she took on grueling cleaning jobs, often starting at 4 in the morning, battling stomach pains from hunger and stress. To pass her exams, she burned the midnight oil, poring over textbooks, painstakingly teaching herself how to learn, how to think critically, how to articulate her thoughts in writing. There's a particularly harrowing account of her having to take an exam while suffering from excruciating pain because Shawn, during one of his visits, had broken her toe. She limped to the exam room, her body aching, but her spirit, though battered, remained unyielding. Having endured so much hardship already, the rigors of academic life, while daunting, did not crush her. Having known such profound deprivation, she cherished every opportunity to learn, every piece of knowledge she acquired. Through sheer, unrelenting effort, Tara began to find her footing. She not only survived, she started to thrive. She graduated with honors, a remarkable achievement that then led to an even more astonishing opportunity, a Gates-Cambridge scholarship, to pursue a master's degree and later a PhD at the prestigious University of Cambridge in England. This journey from a junkyard on a remote Idaho mountain to the intellectual echelons of one of the world's oldest universities is a powerful illustration of how consistent, focused effort can reshape a life. She was transforming herself, one difficult chapter, one challenging concept, one hard-won insight at a time. Life, as Tara's story so vividly demonstrates, is a process of accumulation. When you commit to incremental progress, to constant learning, dreams that once seemed impossibly distant can gradually come within reach. Tara didn't just acquire an education, she reforged her very identity. Every act of perseverance, every moment of dedicated study was a step towards a new, more beautiful, and self-determined existence. If destiny seems to have dealt you a hand filled with pain and challenges, Tara's path whispers a crucial truth: accumulate silently, toil quietly. The relentless self-cultivation you undertake today, often in obscurity, is precisely what will allow you to shine brilliantly tomorrow. Your fate is not a fixed point, it is a trajectory you can influence. In the vast sea of humanity, you have the power to live a life that is uniquely, authentically yours. When Tara first arrived at Brigham Young University, a profound sense of loneliness enveloped her. This wasn't just the typical homesickness of a new student. It was a deeper, more disorienting isolation, stemming from the jarring collision between her ingrained worldview and the reality of the wider world. She had been raised in an environment of extreme rigidity and judgment. Consequently, at university, she initially perceived female students wearing skirts that showed their knees as morally lax, or watching a movie on the Sabbath as a grave sin. She carried the weight of her upbringing heavily, to the point where she wouldn't wash her hands after using the restroom, a habit born from her family's distrust of conventional hygiene. And she wouldn't take painkillers for an agonizing earache, fearing medication. She even refused government financial aid despite struggling to pay tuition because of her father's diatribes against the socialist state. Her classmates, understandably, found her behavior strange, even off-putting. They cast looks of disdain, marking her as an eccentric, an outsider. And so she found herself profoundly alone. In this solitude, however, Tara began to seek solace and understanding in the one place she felt a glimmer of connection: the pages of books. Through her relentless engagement with history, philosophy, and literature, she started to learn about modern civilization, about different ways of thinking and being. Slowly, painstakingly, she began to bridge the chasm between her past and her present, to reevaluate her beliefs, and to piece together a new understanding of herself. She started to shed the more extreme and isolating aspects of her conditioning and began, tentatively, to live like what she perceived as a normal person. Being alone, for Tara, transformed from a source of pain into a gift, a precious space for growth. Solitude, she discovered, could be the most fertile ground for self-improvement. When you are truly alone, in a constructive way, anxieties can cool, the noisy demands of the external world can fade, and you can begin to hear your own inner voice. Tara found her own rhythm in this solitude. It allowed her the mental space to process complex ideas, to make reasoned judgments, and to untangle the knots of her past. Of course, her loneliness wasn't solely a product of her university environment. It was also deeply intertwined with her evolving relationship with her family. As Tara's education expanded her mind, a painful chasm began to open between her and her parents. The moment she started to voice the truth about Shawn's abuse, to challenge the family narrative, her parents reacted not with concern or understanding, but with denial and accusation. They insisted she was possessed, that her memories were hallucinations, that education had corrupted her. She found herself increasingly isolated from her entire family, who largely sided with her parents and Shawn. Yet, it was precisely during this period of intense familial alienation that Tara truly began to touch the bedrock of her own inner truth. She clung to the reality of her experiences, refusing to recant or be gaslighted. She resolved to defend her own sanity and to pursue her own convictions, even if it meant standing completely alone. She delved deeper into her studies, immersing herself in the works of great thinkers like David Hume and John Stuart Mill, seeking intellectual frameworks to understand her own experiences and the dynamics of her family. She conducted rigorous academic research, driven by a desire to solve the unanswered questions of her own life. After a year of intense, solitary effort, she completed the first draft of her doctoral dissertation and received the offer to pursue her PhD at Cambridge. This academic achievement was also a personal triumph. She was building a new life, a new self, and the profound confusion that had haunted her for years began to find resolution. Success, as Tara's journey illustrates, is rarely an overnight phenomenon. Behind every significant achievement often lies a period of solitude and hardship that most people cannot fathom. True solitude isn't a desperate loneliness. It's a profound awakening, a powerful strength that emerges from quiet contemplation. It allows us to, like a bird, find our own sky and fly towards it. While many people use noise and distraction to fill their inner emptiness, those who achieve remarkable things often harness the power of solitude to cultivate their inner resources and achieve their goals. Life often involves solitary steps, quiet days of accumulation. In these moments of stillness, you can gather immense energy. You don't need to strive to fit in with everyone, nor do you need to seek validation from others. You can, in your own quiet way, forge your own path. This, perhaps, is the best way to live authentically in the present. There's a quote by Wendell Berry that says, "When we change our landscape, we change our lives." But perhaps even more profoundly, when our minds are expanded by new ideas, they can never fully return to their original, narrower dimensions. Tara Westover is a living embodiment of this. She was reborn through education, constantly moving forward, even as her family remained entrenched in their old ways. This created an unbridgeable gap. Whenever Tara gently tried to suggest that Shawn's behavior was abusive and unacceptable, her father would erupt in anger, accusing her of returning from Cambridge only to disrupt the family's peace. He consistently defended Shawn, while her mother remained silent, a passive enabler of the family dysfunction. Shawn, in turn, accused Tara of betrayal, of stabbing him in the back. He would call her, screaming abuse and threats, even vowing to hire someone to kill her. Under this immense pressure, under the weight of her parents' unyielding bias and Shawn's terrifying aggression, even Tara's sister eventually chose to sever ties with her, siding with the family narrative that painted Tara as the problem, as someone distant from God, controlled by Satan, a destroyer of the family. What's particularly heartbreaking and deeply paradoxical is that despite their condemnation and rejection of her new self, Tara's parents still harbored a desire for her to return to the fold, to be reborn into their way of thinking. This, in its own twisted way, was their expression of love, a love so distorted and conditional that it became a source of immense pain for Tara. She didn't want to sever the bonds of blood, the primal connection to her family. After all, family is often the most complex and fraught terrain, where clear lines of right and wrong can become hopelessly blurred. But she was no longer the girl from Buck's Peak. Education had irrevocably changed her. Her parents, however, remained unchanged. This internal conflict plunged Tara into a period of severe psychological distress. For a long time, her mental state felt fractured, split between her loyalty to her past and the undeniable truth of her present. She experienced a profound breakdown, losing confidence, numbing herself with endless hours of television. She described days filled with uncontrollable crying, nights punctuated by manic laughter, and desperate, aimless wandering. But eventually, the new awareness, the critical thinking skills, the broader perspective cultivated by her education began to take root in her belief system. Tara came to a painful but liberating realization. Separation from her family, at least in its current form, was not just inevitable, it was necessary for her own survival and well-being. She understood that growing up sometimes means growing away, and that even in family relationships, there are times when parting is the healthiest, most honest course of action. After an agonizing internal battle, Tara finally freed herself from the crushing guilt and made the courageous decision to say goodbye to her parents, or at least to the relationship as it had been. She found a way to make peace with her own heart, to stand firmly in her own truth. As Tara herself expressed in an interview, you can love someone deeply and still choose to say goodbye. You can miss someone every single day and still be grateful they are not an active part of your life. Some people, she realized, are simply not meant to be in your close orbit, no matter how much you might wish otherwise. They can exist in your life in a different way, perhaps in memory, perhaps loved from a distance. There is a kind of love that thrives not on proximity, but on remembrance, a fondness cherished from afar, without the need for constant contact or the pain of ongoing conflict. When the sun is too scorching, we might turn and embrace the moon, but this doesn't mean we forget the sun's warmth and light. By learning to let go, by accepting the painful necessity of separation, Tara was able to move towards a healthier, more authentic life. With a formidable inner strength, forged in the fires of adversity and tempered by education, Tara Westover broke free from the chains of her upbringing and stepped into a vast, expansive world. Through education, she explored the complexities of human nature. She rebuilt herself piece by piece through the acquisition of knowledge, and she truly, spectacularly reversed the trajectory of her life. Human beings, much like pearls, must cultivate the ability to heal their wounds, to transform their scars into something beautiful and resilient. Life will inevitably have its seasons of abundance and its periods of desolation. It is only by letting go of limiting beliefs, by patiently and persistently rebuilding ourselves from the inside out, that we can meet the new, more evolved version of who we are meant to be. It is only by learning to embrace solitude, to continuously explore our inner landscape, that we can find our true destination. And it is only by conquering our fears, by finding hope in the midst of adversity, and by holding fast to our deepest convictions that we can discover true happiness and the courage to not just survive, but to truly live. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration of Tara Westover's incredible journey. If you found this reflection meaningful, or if it sparked something within you, please do give this video a thumbs up. Share it with anyone you think might benefit from hearing this story of resilience. And of course, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on future content. My hope is that, like Tara, we can all learn to transform the bitter experiences of our lives into profound inner strength, and that even in the face of difficulty, we never stop moving forward. Until next time, take care and keep growing.